Today's scripture is from Genesis chapter 27 verses 41 to 46. Let's read it together. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." In the quiet of this dawn, there are two things I first discover in this short passage. The first is the thought of why Rebekah's heart went out more to her son Jacob, and the other is to focus more on the character of Esau. As stated in verse 46, it seems Rebekah truly disliked Esau's two wives, in other words, her daughters-in-law. It seems she disliked the Hittite daughters-in-law in the land of Canaan so much that she said, "I'm disgusted with my life." So she gives the daughters-in-law as the reason for sending Jacob away, saying, "Now the wife of my second son should at least be to my liking, shouldn't she?" And as we all know, Isaac sends Jacob away. But he doesn't just send him, he sends him with a blessing. Looking at this story, we might think that Isaac also had the same, or perhaps similar feelings about his daughters-in-law. But this passage, with the phrase, "a source of grief," that we saw last Sunday, shows that both Isaac and Rebekah were thinking in a way that was not right. However, I found a word more worthy of focus in this passage, and it concerns his brother Esau. In truth, if you consider when Esau and Jacob were born, there isn't much of a difference. As twin brothers, you could just call them brothers, and though one is the older and one is the younger, there isn't much of an age gap. But today's passage clearly highlights the terms older son and younger son. Through this emphasis on Esau as the older brother and Jacob as the younger, I began to think there might be a reason, and started to focus more on Esau. In the stillness of this dawn, we will experience the anger and frustration of a man named Esau, and within it, we will encounter the amazing providence of God. The passage does not simply deal with the conflict of brothers and Esau's anger, but it shows the clash between human plans and God's will. And within this, I thought it could be a time to reflect on how each of our own lives should be painted day by day, and to look back and plan our journey of faith. I want you to imagine the anger that Esau held toward his brother Jacob. He who was the firstborn from birth, who had received his father's love sufficiently, had many things taken from him by his younger brother. And in today's passage we see him being completely robbed of the blessing he was meant to receive from his father. But as Esau mentioned in yesterday's passage, he says, "This isn't the only time," and we see him saying, "My brother deceived me and took my birthright." He is furious and says he must kill him, but Esau doesn't just say he'll kill him, he adds a condition. It is the part where he says, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." As we look at this, I want us to see an Esau who seems somewhat perfect, the reflection of our own selves, who cannot help but be weak before God's choice. The reason Esau doesn't just say, "I'm angry so I'll kill my brother," but prefaces it with, "The days of mourning for my father are near," shows a different side of Esau. Esau was not a person who would unconditionally express his anger just because he was angry. Even when angry, he was a person who knew how to control his anger. The phrase, "the days of mourning for my father are near," might be seen in some translations as meaning the time is close, so it doesn't matter if I kill him right now. But if you carefully look at the original language and other translations, there is a sequence of time. It means, "After the time of mourning for my father has passed, I will kill my brother." What does this mean? It means, after my father dies and after the period of mourning for him is over, I will kill my younger brother. Right now, Rebekah is sending Jacob away, thinking his older brother might kill him immediately, but there is a sequence in Esau's words. It is after his father's death. He's saying he'll kill his brother after the funeral is all over. What does this mean? It means that no matter how angry he is, he cannot be disrespectful to his father. It seems that Esau clearly held this one thought in his heart. I am so angry and I really want to kill my brother, but how can I, as the older brother, kill my younger brother while our father is still alive? When I saw these words, I began to wonder what kind of person Esau really was, and I started to carefully examine the depictions of Esau in the Bible, starting from the birthright incident. We tend to think of Esau as a reckless person. We might think he took his birthright lightly and easily sold it to his brother Jacob because he was hungry. However, the Bible first describes him as a skillful hunter. What does this mean? A skillful hunter, for those living a nomadic life at the time, was a person with excellent survival skills, someone who could accurately assess reality, and someone with good execution abilities. In other words, the Bible is telling us that Esau was a man fit for his time. But when Esau sold his birthright, while the Bible does portray him as a person who truly took the birthright lightly, as I examined him again, he began to seem like a person who, in a situation where he was about to starve to death, valued the tangible benefit right in front of his eyes more. He was not a person who valued abstract principles. He seemed to be a pragmatic person, someone who valued immediate tangible profit. Starting from that perspective, I examined Esau's actions one by one. Esau married at the age of 40. But there is one other person who married at 40. Who would that be? His father, Isaac. Isaac also married at 40, and Esau also married at 40. However, there is a clear difference between when Isaac married and when Esau married. What is it? When Isaac was 40, his father sent his most cherished servant all the way to Haran to bring back a wife. But when Esau was 40, we see that his father took no action regarding his marriage. Jacob also hadn't married, and Rebekah persuades Isaac to send Jacob away using the topic of marriage. Seeing Isaac being persuaded, we can infer his thoughts, my son is of age to marry, but I haven't done anything. In that situation, Esau decided to marry Hittite women. This may not have been an impulsive decision. What happened before Esau's marriage? Isaac had conflicts with the local people over wells. His father would dig a well, and the local people would fill it in, and Isaac would not protest, but simply move away. What would Esau have felt seeing his powerless father? Esau, now a grown man of nearly 40, probably thought he had to act as the eldest son for his family. And what was the best method at that time? A political marriage? By marrying women from the local tribes, Esau might have been thinking of his family first. The political marriages common at the time were a non-aggression pact. Entrusting one's child also meant a promise to be jointly responsible for that child's safety. Through marriage, Esau showed a desire to somehow resolve the contentious relationship his father had with the Gentiles. Looking at this, we can also see in Esau the image of an elder brother who truly cared for his family. And that side of Esau doesn't just stop there. We know that when Esau went to reconcile with Jacob, he brought with him 400 men, but that number, 400, was greater than the 318 men his grandfather Abraham took into battle. The fact that Esau could lead 400 men shows that he was a person with leadership, who could command more people than his grandfather. Esau was not just a reckless person we could easily dismiss. He was a person who could lead many people and exert his own influence in the region. We cannot think that Esau's life was less smooth than Jacob's. Why? Because after Jacob left, all of his father's property would have gone to Esau. The remaining son, Esau, had the wealth of his father, who had become a wealthy man. He could lead many people. And unlike Jacob, Esau also had family ties, a covenant relationship through marriage with the people of that region through marriage. This relationship was not one that could be easily broken. We can see the strength of this when Jacob returns. After the incident at Shechem, we see in Genesis 35:5 that the terror of God fell on the towns all around them so that no one pursued them. Why? Jacob is Esau's brother. Attacking Jacob would mean facing Esau and his 400 men, and all the other tribes allied with him through family ties. Jacob was not someone they could attack without serious consequences. This one person, Esau, whom we might simply think of as a reckless person, just some guy who wasn't chosen by God, may have, through the political marriage he made long before meeting Jacob, also become one of the means God used to protect his younger brother. Esau was also a person who was filial to his father to the very end. When he realized that his father and mother were grieving because of his 2 wives, Esau also married a daughter of Ishmael, showing his filial piety and trying to comfort his father. And when Jacob and Esau met, they reconciled. God must have used someone to bring about reconciliation. Whom did he use? He used Esau's character. Through Esau, we see the image of an older brother showing forgiveness and magnanimity toward his younger brother. When Esau met Jacob, he embraced him, kissed him, and they wept. He was happy to see his younger brother. It seems that over that long period of time his anger had probably subsided, and we see him persistently refusing the gift his younger brother Jacob gives him. I already have plenty, you keep what's yours. After Jacob kept insisting, we see the image of the older brother finally accepting it. After that, in chapter 35, we finally see the scene of Isaac's burial. If Esau had been determined to kill his younger brother, he could have done so, but after saying, "After the mourning for Isaac is over," Esau doesn't make a move. For that long period of time, there is no story of what Esau did. Esau simply lived his life faithfully as a pragmatic person who pursued the tangible benefits before his eyes. By living so faithfully, he accumulated wealth and became a person who could command many people, a person who lacked nothing. After mourning his father, his next action surprised me even more. The land where his father had lived was too small for Esau and Jacob to live together, so Esau himself moves to the region of Mount Seir. Where have we seen a similar situation? When Abraham and Lot had too many possessions, Abraham spoke to Lot first and let him choose. Would it have been easy for a whole household of over 400 people to move at once? Yet the older brother Esau tells Jacob, "You live in the homeland where our father lived, I will move." And he moves to Mount Seir, and when he goes to Mount Seir, he drives out the people living in that land, and settles there. And that story of settlement is recorded in Genesis, with the note, "before any Israelite king reigned." There is one thing to remember here. This story in Genesis, the story of Jacob and Esau, was not written in the time of Jacob and Esau, but was left by Moses some 500 years later during the Exodus journey, for the people of Israel to remember. In Deuteronomy 2, God says that he never gave the land where Esau's nation, Edom, lived to Israel, so you must not enter that land. If you need anything from them, you must pay for food to eat and water to drink. God was not only the God of Jacob, God was also the God of Esau. Why did Moses leave this story, showing one by one that Esau was by no means a bad brother to Jacob? I think it was because there was a story he wanted to leave for the people of Israel. What could it have been? It was that God's choice was Jacob. Esau was a perfect human being, a man who could be called great in his time, and a person who acted with no shortcomings toward his younger brother. But God's choice was Jacob, and it was our Israel. God does not choose us based on our perfection. God chooses us even in our deficient situations. God does not tell us to be perfect people, but he tells us to be people who rely on God. In the book of Malachi, there is a passage where God says, "I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated." If there was something to love, perhaps the more capable Esau would have been more lovable. But God loved the weaker, more flawed Jacob, and God was with Jacob throughout his life. If there was a difference between Esau and Jacob, it was their earnestness for God that was very different. As Esau lived a perfect and smooth life, there is no mention of his earnestness for God, but in Jacob's story, one by one, there is so much earnestness for God that comes through. Of course, one could say it was because of his own faults, but we see Jacob trying in every way to receive God's blessing, to live in God's grace. The birthright was one instance, his father's blessing was another, and his wrestling with God at Peniel was another. The choice received from God may not be one of comfort. The grace and choice received from God may also speak of responsibility, mission, and a corresponding change in life. Jacob changes slowly. We see the story of him changing into the person God wanted him to be. Rather than trying to be a perfect person, I hope I can be a person who relies on God. And on the other hand, I hope I can be a person who is more earnest before God. In this dawn, despite the hot weather and a restless night's sleep, there must be an earnestness that we all share in coming to worship. Today, with that earnestness, I hope we can become people who are after God's own heart. If Esau had also had that earnestness to seek God, perhaps Esau would have been recorded differently. If Jacob had also had the human qualities that Esau possessed, perhaps Jacob would have been recorded in the Bible in a different way. But when God gives us grace, he always tells us to live a life worthy of that grace. By leaving us the story of Esau and the story of Jacob, I believe God is telling us equally about his grace and the life worthy of that grace. Today, may we who are in this place, rather than demanding perfection from others or trying harder to stand before God as perfect people, become people who can rely on God. And seeing the shortcomings of others, may we still see the grace God gives in the midst of those shortcomings, and welcome them, embracing them in this place. I bless all our people of faith to be so.